The silver glint of a knife caught the dim light, a silent whisper of death cutting through the night air. Its target, Anthony Okafor's throat. But before the blade could fulfill its purpose, it met resistance. Not steel, not security, but a mop handle. Firm, unyielding. Held by the one woman no one expected to be there at 2 a.m., a maid. "Stay back, sir." She ordered, her voice steady as thunderclouds. In one fluid motion, she disarmed the trained assassin. The man hit the polished marble with a thud that echoed through the silence. Anthony Okafor, Nigeria's youngest billionaire and the continent's most scrutinized bachelor, stood frozen, stunned, and for the first time in years, vulnerable and protected. She wasn't like the others. The others had tried to seduce him. She had saved his life. Before we reached the moment, her mop became a weapon and her eyes burned with loyalty. Let's rewind 6 months. Because the truth about trust is it's not built overnight. And for Anthony, trust was more dangerous than wealth, fame, or even death itself. At 30, Anthony Okafor wasn't just rich. He was revolutionary. His fintech empire redefined banking in West Africa, making him a billionaire before he'd grown a full beard. But in his mansion outside Abuja, surrounded by marble walls and digital fortresses, Anthony lived like a man at war with shadows. Because wealth wasn't his greatest burden, trust was. In just 5 years, he had fired 69 maids. Some tabloids called him Nigeria's most difficult man. Others called him worse, cold, paranoid, impossible to please. But Anthony had his reasons. Jennifer had hidden cameras in his bedroom to sell his privacy to gossip sites. Grace had laced his tea with sedatives. Patience. She moved her entire family into the guest quarters without asking. Each betrayal deepened the fortress around his heart. Each firing came with the same cold words: "Your services are no longer required. Security will escort you out." He no longer looked people in the eye. He didn't ask questions. Didn't answer any. Until maid number 71. Her name was Serena Williams. And unlike the rest, she wasn't looking to climb. She was just trying to survive. In a quiet village in Enugu State, Serena's world was far from marble floors and luxury. Her father, a retired army sergeant, had raised her and her younger brother David with military discipline and unwavering principles. Life hadn't been kind, but it had been honest. And when David was diagnosed with a rare heart defect requiring surgery worth millions of naira, Serena had one choice: fight. The call came from Abuja, a domestic agency, confidential employer, high salary. She didn't hesitate. "I'm not here for comfort," she told her father. "I'm here for David." Ibrahim, the head of security. "Don't talk to Mr. Okafor unless he talks first. Don't ask about his life. Don't enter his bedroom or study. And whatever you do, don't catch feelings." Serena nodded. "Understood, sir. I'm here to work. Nothing more." She didn't flirt. She didn't care about his Ferraris or his Picasso originals. To Anthony, that made her suspiciously refreshing. For 3 weeks, their interactions were purely transactional. She clocked in at 6 a.m., cleaned with methodical precision, ate alone, and left at 8 p.m. No gossip, no eye contact, no nonsense. But Anthony noticed, not in a romantic way. Not yet. He noticed the way she folded linens with military precision, the way she moved silently through the halls, the way she shut down staff gossip with one line: "We're not paid to speculate." She wasn't there to impress. She was there to finish the job. And Anthony, a man allergic to vulnerability, began watching the cameras during breakfast, not for paranoia, but for something else entirely. He didn't know it yet. But Serena had already entered the one place no other maid had ever reached his mind. Anthony Okafor didn't believe in second chances, not for his employees, not for himself, and certainly not for the world that had turned love into leverage. But life has a cruel sense of timing. While Anthony reviewed quarterly reports in his study one quiet Tuesday night, the house slumbered. Guards stood watch. Security cameras blinked through every corner except one. A small, reinforced window in the ground floor library, just barely outside the camera's view. It was a flaw only someone with intimate knowledge of the mansion could have exploited. Someone on the inside. Anthony didn't know that tonight someone had, but Serena did. She hadn't meant to stay late. It wasn't her shift. But earlier that day, she received a call from home. David's condition had worsened. The surgery couldn't wait any longer. She needed to ask for an advance, and it went against everything her father had taught her. Don't bring your burdens into another man's house, he used to say. Earn your bread and ask for nothing more. But David's life was hanging by a thread. So at 2:00 a.m., Serena stood in the hallway rehearsing the hardest question she'd ever have to ask. Sir, may I request part of my pay in advance? Then she heard it. A faint, unfamiliar sound, the scrape of metal against glass. She froze. Years of her father's drills kicked in. She turned toward the sound. The library, the blind spot. She crept quietly, ducking behind columns, listening with every muscle in her body. Another sound, a click. A low, stealthy footstep. She didn't have a weapon. Only a wooden mop handle nearby. But it was enough. She gripped it tight. From the shadows, she saw the intruder, black clothing, curved blade night vision goggles. Silent, methodical, a trained assassin, heading directly for Mr. Okafor's study. She didn't panic. She moved. The hall was narrow. The intruder didn't expect anyone to be awake, much less standing in his path with a mop like it was a sword. As the blade flashed toward her, she twisted, blocked it midair, and countered with a downward strike to the wrist. The knife clattered to the ground. Serena pivoted. A second strike to the throat, not lethal, just enough. The man dropped, unconscious. One breath, then two. She straightened her back just as Anthony opened the door, alerted by the noise. He stopped in his tracks. A maid, a weapon, a bleeding man in black at her feet. What the hell is going on? Serena didn't blink. Sir, I believe someone was sent here to kill you. I suggest we call the police. Security scrambled. The intruder was confirmed to be a professional killer. The knife was real. The breach, real. The motive, still unknown. But the most unexpected part wasn't the attack. It was Serena. When questioned by police about her combat skills, she answered plainly, "My father was Sergeant Major Williams, Nigerian Army. He taught me never to be defenseless." Anthony sat quietly as she spoke. His mind wasn't racing. It was locked on one fact. The woman who just saved his life was the first person in 5 years who hadn't tried to manipulate him. She didn't flirt. She didn't steal. She didn't even ask for money. She stood between him and death with a mop. Later that night, after the cops left and the body was taken away, Anthony found Serena still awake. She'd stayed behind to give her full statement and help security patch the breach. He brewed tea for both of them, hands shaking slightly. "Serena," he asked gently, "why were you still here at that hour?" Her eyes dropped for the first time. "I was going to ask you for an advance," she said, voice barely above a whisper, "for my brother's surgery. I know it was unprofessional. I'm sorry." Anthony leaned back, stunned. "You needed money," he repeated, "and instead of blackmailing me or lying, you were going to ask." "Honestly, yes, sir," she said. It seemed the proper way. Anthony let out a breath and then unexpectedly laughed, not in mockery but relief. "In 5 years, Serena, you're the only one who's ever just asked." He personally called the best cardiac center in Lagos and arranged David's admission, not out of charity, out of respect. Because Serena Williams wasn't just another maid. She was the only one who didn't want something from him, except the chance to earn her pay. And Anthony, the man who trusted no one, suddenly found himself wondering, what would my life look like if I trusted her? For the first time in years, Anthony Okafor left his office door open. It was subtle, nothing anyone else would notice. But to Serena, who polished every inch of this mansion like it was sacred ground, it was a signal. A crack in the stone wall he'd spent years building around himself. In the days after the assassination attempt, everything inside Anthony began to shift. Serena, still quiet and reserved, moved through the house as usual. But now, when she passed him in the hallway, their eyes met a moment longer. When she poured his coffee, he asked if she'd eaten. And when their hands brushed by accident or fate, neither of them pulled away too quickly. But there was no romance. Not yet. There was only trust, and for Anthony that was far more dangerous. The investigation moved fast. The assassin had no fingerprints, no ID. But the method was military grade, and the tools were professional. That left only one possibility: someone had given him inside information. Anthony sat alone in his study one evening, files spread out in front of him. Entry points, camera placements, staff schedules. Someone had known exactly when and where the cameras didn't reach, and only a handful of people ever saw the blueprints. Only someone close. "Do you notice everything?" he asked Serena one afternoon when she brought him his tea. "I try," she said simply. He paused, watching her. "Tell me who's been acting." Off, she didn't hesitate. "The chef keeps checking the schedule board when no one's around. The junior maid, Evelyn, she asks a lot of questions about your routine. And Marcus, he's too quiet lately." Anthony stiffened. Marcus, his personal assistant, 7 years, his most trusted employee. The idea was ridiculous, wasn't it? 3 days later, Anthony watched from the security room as Marcus walked into the main control office. Nothing unusual until he slid something beneath the desk. Anthony zoomed in. A device. Black. Blinking. He pressed the intercom. "Marcus, stay right there." The device was a listening bug, meant to tap into the security system's audio. Marcus didn't resist. He didn't deny it. He just looked at Anthony and said, "You never trusted anyone, boss. That's what made this so easy." Marcus had been leaking information for months to Dr. Emeka Okonkwo, Anthony's former partner and now biggest corporate rival. Emeka had weaponized Anthony's paranoia, bribing former maids and grooming Marcus to plant a mole inside the house. 69 women failed to break you, Marcus had told Emeka, but the 70th, she'll never get close. You'll fire her too. They hadn't counted on Serena. They hadn't counted on loyalty. When Anthony told Serena the truth, she didn't blink. "I suspected Marcus," she said. "He never looked people in the eye when they spoke. Except you." He looked too long. Anthony sat back. "You read people too well. My father used to say, in battle it's not the bullet you see that kills you. It's the one you don't. Not because of the betrayal, but because of what Serena had said to him the day before when he asked what she saw in him. I see a man who's built walls so high, she had said he's forgotten there are people worth trusting on the other side." The words haunted him, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. And that truth scared him more than any assassin ever could. The news came 2 weeks later. David's surgery was a success. Serena received the call while sweeping the back garden. She didn't cry. She simply smiled, placed the broom down gently, and whispered a prayer into the wind. That night, she approached Anthony after dinner. No files on his desk. No guards hovering. Just the two of them in the quiet of the kitchen. "Sir," she said, "I'd like to request a short leave. To visit my brother in recovery." Anthony nodded, already prepared. "I've arranged for the jet to be ready by morning." But Serena hesitated. "Thank you," she said softly. "But I'll take a commercial flight." Anthony blinked. "Why, it's more appropriate," she replied. "Serena, you saved my life. Let me do something for you." Her voice didn't rise. It didn't falter. But it struck deeper than anything he'd heard. "My life isn't hard because I lack comfort. It's hard because the people I love suffer. David is healing now. That's the only ease I need." But that night, he found himself restless again. Only this time it wasn't fear that kept him awake. It was clarity. He wasn't afraid Serena would betray him. He was afraid she never wanted anything from him at all. Not his money, not his status, not his fame. She simply saw him as a man, and in a life filled with masks and motives that felt revolutionary. At 6 a.m., she prepared to leave for the airport. A car waited outside, a small bag in hand. And Anthony, he was already waiting. In person. "Serena," he said, walking toward her, "when you return, I'd like to take you to dinner." She raised an eyebrow. "As your boss, no," he smiled gently. As a man who wants to know the woman who saved his life and reminded him how to trust. For the first time since arriving at the mansion, Serena truly smiled. Full, honest, bright as sunlight. "I'd like that, Anthony," she replied. "But only if we go somewhere real. No 5-star rooftop nonsense." He laughed. "Where then, there's a small place in Garki that makes the best pepper soup in Abuja." Anthony shook his head, laughing. "You're the only woman I've ever met who turns down private jets and chooses soup over caviar." And yet, she said with a wink, "I'm still the only one who stopped a trained killer with a mop. Not about a new maid scandal, not about another firing, not about corporate betrayal, but about a wedding." Anthony Okafor, the untouchable, the impossible, the stone-hearted, was getting married. To a maid. The world couldn't believe it. But those who knew the truth, they weren't surprised, because Serena Williams had never tried to capture his wealth. She'd captured something much rarer, his trust. The ceremony wasn't held in Abuja. It was in her village, a small church, modest flowers. A proud father in military uniform walking his daughter down the aisle with perfect posture and tears in his eyes. Anthony stood at the altar, hands trembling not with nerves, but with humility. Because 69 women had tried to take something from him, but Serena had given him something he didn't even know he'd lost. The courage to love, without fear. "I do," he said, his voice clear, steady. "And I always will." When they kissed, the applause wasn't for the billionaire who married a maid. It was for two people who, in a world full of deception, had chosen truth. Today the mansion still stands. But the halls no longer echo with suspicion, they echo with laughter. The security system remains cutting edge, but not out of fear, out of care. And in the kitchen, there's a framed photo of David grinning in a hospital bed. It's a reminder the best investments aren't in technology or markets. They're in people brave enough to believe in you. Anthony never fired another maid, mostly because Serena still insists on doing the cleaning herself. "I know how to sweep," she says with a smirk, "and I know you trust me to do it right." Sometimes he joins her. The billionaire who forgot how to trust, learning day by day from the woman who never forgot how to love. Their story, it became legend, not because a maid married a mogul, but because they found each other through honesty, dignity, and the power of earned trust. And in a world where everything has a price, they discovered that the most precious things, love, loyalty, and courage, can never be bought, only earned, one honest moment at a time. If this story moved, you don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful tales about trust, love, and the unexpected heroes among us. And tell us below, do you believe love can break through the walls we build to protect ourselves?